your fate, and it's time for us to leave her.
If you replace every part of a ship one by one until none of the original parts remain, will it be the same ship? And if not, at what point does it become another ship? This is the Ship of Theseus paradox. There was a time when Assassin's Creed was one of the most respected and beloved gaming franchises out there, and that was during a time where it was an annual release. To put into perspective how far we've come since then. Those were the old Ubisoft glory days, and a lot has changed from that time. Ubisoft's public perception has fallen down the drain in recent memory, making people forget the level of quality they were putting out back then. Anti-consumer behavior, shady business practices, and prioritizing profit led them to make bad decision after bad decision, spiraling out of control towards a bleak future. The only thing that has been keeping them afloat is obviously their golden goose, which is the Assassin's Creed franchise. This monolith of gaming culture is the proof that a good IP can go way beyond its expiration date and still obtain great success. However, this success came with a heavy price. The Assassin's Creed we all fell in love with as gamers was drained of everything that made it special and has been dead for a very long time. Ubisoft just stole the carcass out of its grave, gave it a fresh makeover, and started parading it around in order to attract more customers. And that happened with Odyssey. Assassin's Creed Odyssey took a giant leap of faith, no pun intended, and landed on a setting that took place way before the Creed was actually formed. So we got an Assassin's Creed game with no assassins or templars, no hidden blade, and the only things that were remotely connected to the original series were the literal leap of faith and an eagle, I guess. Even the parkour was streamlined, and the emphasis was on the combat, not on the stealth. The game was massive, but it was not vast, it was bloated. The protagonist was serviceable and horny all the time.
Your husband is tired. Allow me to satisfy your hunger.
The story was forgettable, and despite all of these, the experience was fun. I had fun with Odyssey despite all of its issues. I think it's a good game, however, it is a bad Assassin's Creed game. That's the Ship of Theseus paradox. There is nothing left of the original product, and I hate it because of that. But the actual product in front of me is not bad, so I cannot hate it, as it would be hypocritical for the good time I had with the game. After I finished Odyssey when it came out, which took me a long time, Jesus Christ, this game was fucking huge, I decided I needed to take a break from the franchise, so I didn't go back to Valhalla or even Mirage, and I still haven't. Valhalla seemed to be even more bloated. What the fuck do you mean 60 hours to finish the main story? And Mirage didn't seem to have the love that is required to bring the franchise back to its roots. It seemed soulless. I mean, the game was originally supposed to be DLC for Valhalla, but it got reworked into a full installment, and since Silksong is still nowhere in sight, I cannot see how this is a good development strategy. What I'm trying to say is that I left the AC bandwagon, however, as you can see from the title, I'm back, baby. The only reason I decided to return is because they finally listened and offered us what we requested 15 years ago. I was asking for feudal Japan before AC3, and I was not the only one because it made sense. It was the most obvious setting for an Assassin's Creed game to take place because ninjas, obviously, and the possibilities were endless.
I want to be ninja.
It was the recipe for success, but Ubisoft didn't listen. They persisted with the annual releases and the series innovated less and less. And after their most hyped installment, Unity, turned out to be a disappointment, one more forgettable game, Syndicate, was what broke the camel's back, and Ubisoft had to go back to the drawing board. They plotted in silence, and instead of finally listening to their fans asking for feudal Japan, they gave us Origins, which surprisingly was fucking great. Origins changed the AC formula completely, taking huge inspirations from games like Witcher 3 and turned the series into an RPG. Looking back at it, the newly introduced RPG mechanics have become outdated, but at that time, this new fresh coat of paint breathed life into the series. It also helped that the game had one of the best stories in the entire franchise, and Bayek is probably top 3 of protagonists in the entire series. You would hear complaints about how the RPG mechanics stray very far from the original gameplay, but those came from the same people that would have previously complained about the lack of innovation in the series. Ubisoft actually listened to the fans, not when it comes to the setting, but about putting an emphasis on innovation. So after ditching the annual release schedule with Origins, imagine if they took all the extra time, innovated even further, and also delivered the setting everyone wanted. But no, they did the complete opposite of everything I said and gave us Odyssey, and I already told you how I feel about the game. After Origins was a hit, Ubisoft felt complacent as they thought they could start milking the franchise again and nobody would notice. And this ego-driven decision would probably haunt them for the rest of their lives because it allowed them to let their guard down and a new contender was about to overthrow them. And I'm obviously talking about Ghost of Tsushima.
We will face death and defend our home.
I'm not going to emphasize this point because it has already been overdone since Ghost of Tsushima first released in 2020. Sucker Punch really delivered not only the Assassin's Creed experience in feudal Japan we've been all asking for, but it went beyond any expectations. I didn't play Ghost when it launched because I didn't happen to own a PlayStation, still don't. But when I got my hands on one, I went in with low expectations because I gave up on the hope that a AAA ninja power fantasy set in feudal Japan is going to happen and also be good. That being said, yeah, Ghost of Tsushima was the best game that year. Fuck you, The Last of Us Part 2. It went above and beyond every expectation I made. Not only is it the best Assassin's Creed type game, apart from Black Flag, but it is also Vagabond the game. If you know, you know. It touched me in all the right places. Pause. Having established the status quo that Ghost of Tsushima came in and destroyed complacent Ubisoft and their response was Valhalla, we have finally arrived to contemporary times and the tables have turned as Ubisoft is trying to take its throne back from the underdog with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Bruh, I'm 1,000 words deep into the script at the moment and I still haven't started the review. Damn, this is going to be a long one. I hope you bear with me until the very end, but here's the TLDR. Assassin's Creed Shadows is the okayest game I have played in a minute. It is the most fine game. It is not a great game. Hell, at times it is not even a particular good game. It doesn't hold a candle to Ghost of Tsushima. On the other hand, it is far from a bad game. Hell, I wouldn't even call it mid because it somehow manages to deliver some good shit. It is truly the definition of just fine. And because of that, I think that a lot of people will enjoy it. If you're a casual Assassin's Creed fan like myself, you would get some enjoyment out of it, but it's not going to blow you away. If you're a casual gamer in general, you might even love this. Hell, if you got OCD, this will probably be your favorite game, but I will get to that. If you're a die-hard OG fan, you will probably not enjoy this, especially if you're not into the Assassin's Creed RPG formula. And if you're an Asmongold fan that cares deeply about historical accuracy in a franchise where you brawl with the fucking Pope and also fight Medusa, and you have a problem that the protagonists are a samurai who happens to be a black guy and a female assassin, you might need to sort out your life before you actually start playing video games or before having internet privileges in general. This game is not for everybody, and not because it is divisive, but because there are glaring problems with the game that might turn people off and also fun shit that might enhance other people's experience. I am really interested in seeing your opinion on the game, so let's try to be civil and discuss in the comments. If you want to support the channel, you know the standard procedure for YouTube, so feel free to like and subscribe. It would mean the world to me. This has been a long-ass introduction, I apologize, and I hope you stick around. And without further ado, let's enter the bread, as Romanian people would say.
Welcome to the bread bank. We sell bread, we sell loaves. We got bread on deck, bread on the floor. Toasted. Bro, shut the fuck up.
With Assassin's Creed Shadows, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and I'm not referring to the apple from the previous games. No, I'm referring to the fact that the identity of Shadows is defined by its appearance and not by its essence. You play as one of two protagonists, fighting against a secret order, exploring a bloated world whilst leveling up your skills through a satisfying yet simplistic combat system, and by abusing the stealth system against the broken enemy AI. Yeah, I just described Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and Valhalla, and Origins, and Shadows. You put all of these games in a lineup and you cannot tell them apart without looking at the setting and the story. In its presentation, AC Shadows repeats the modern RPG formula of its predecessors without making any drastic innovations. There are some improvements here and there, but I will get to those. The entire time that you are playing Shadows, you feel like you have played this game before. Even Souls games, who are basically the same game, feel drastically different from one another. At times, my muscle memory from playing Odyssey would kick in and I would press buttons to use certain abilities based on how they were mapped in Odyssey. That is a surreal experience and shows how 60 mindless hours of gameplay can root in your head. But hey, at least I know what most items in Isaac do to combat that information. There is nothing fresh to Assassin's Creed Shadows besides its new coat of paint. Its setting is a really big plus that saves the game from being forgettable. To be honest, it is one of the best things about the game, but we already knew that because we've been asking for it for years. And I'm glad to report that they did feudal Japan right. Vast gorgeous landscapes, sprawling rice fields, impressive castles and temples, stunning wildlife. This is the best looking AC game to date, surpassing Unity when it comes to stylization. Ubisoft made the look of the game a priority and they did put a lot of care into it, helping the player get immersed into this beautiful world, and they did this by adding seasons to the game. Seeing how the world changes depending on the season and how the environment reacts to the weather is nothing shorter than spectacular. Going from snowy fields to blossoming sakura trees and then back to violent storms hits the ball out of the park at creating a world that feels alive, in which you want to get lost or just stare at it. This is art. I applaud the team that was in charge with the visual presentation of the game because it's striking. I cannot testify how well they represent the Japanese culture, as I'm not Japanese, surprising fact I know based on my accent. But they nailed the Japanese aesthetic when it comes to the visuals. They also nailed the attention to detail. Just look at how Yasuke takes a leap of faith. Almost everything is destructible and it adds to the immersion as well as the style. They put a lot of effort into this aspect, and I know this because Ubisoft had to shove it in your face by forcing the player to cut bamboo in the tutorial. Like, this objective is so pointless and serves no purpose other than emphasizing this one cool thing they worked on. Look, I'm not trying to downplay the hard work of the people that had to code this, but I think it's too self-aware, as Ubisoft knew the game doesn't have that much interesting stuff to offer and it constantly tries to distract you from that. At its core, Assassin's Creed Shadows is a mixed bag, having a very shallow design, but the presentation is flashy enough to make people not pay attention to the actual substance. Think of it like Apple or Tesla. You learn that AC Shadows is a mixed bag not later than the first fucking hour of the game. In order to perfectly summarize how this game presents itself, please let me guide you through the starting segments of the game to highlight the roller coaster ride of emotions this game will put you through. No spoilers, obviously. So the game starts very well with the perspective of Yasuke. This is brilliant because we are introduced into an unfamiliar setting through the eyes of a foreigner, helping the immersion. Immediately after, we get thrown into the combat. I will delve deeper into the combat later, but for now it is flashy enough to carry the introduction. I was also lucky to witness this incident, and after I saw how the physics engine works, I thought I was about to play the best AC game to date, and this feeling got more reinforced when I was introduced to Naoe and the improved stealth mechanics. Everything seemed to be going on the right track, but it soon started cracking.
Assassins among us!
2 seconds later, a character dies and the game tries to paint this moment as something tragic, as if I didn't just start the game and I have no emotional connection to this character. The story is then set up as a revenge plot, but again, why would I care about revenge when I just met the guy? Immediately after this moment, I'm thrown into another fucking tutorial. The game already taught me all the basics of the combat. Why the fuck am I going through all of this information again? I already know how to do this. Then I get introduced to the best and the most hilarious addition in Assassin's Creed Shadows. We all know how this franchise is infamous for its trailing missions. Personally, I think that Black Flag is a masterpiece, and even I dread to replay it because of the introduction that consists of 2 hours of trailing missions. Instead of removing this godforsaken construct of bad game design, Shadows adds a button that allows you to automatically follow the NPC. Ubisoft's solution to how the player's interactivity is limited during trailing missions is to make the player not play the fucking game. This is genius and hilarious at the same time. This is one of the most counterintuitive decisions I've ever seen in game development. The cherry on top of this whole introduction was encountering invisible walls in an open world game. But my illusion was already broken, so I cannot be any more dramatic. As you can see from this introduction, the game leads you through every feeling imaginable, and it keeps the same pace throughout the entire game. Every pleasant surprise gets tarnished by a big disappointment, and the cycle repeats itself. Assassin's Creed Shadows does 2 things very well, one thing very poorly, and everything else is, as I've mentioned, a mixed bag. I usually like starting off with the bad shit so I can leave the good for last, but I think I have to start off with the positives now, as I've already been very critical about the game. As I said, AC Shadows does 2 things very good in particular. One I have mentioned already, and it's the visual aspect of the game. It is truly beautiful top to bottom, and it also runs surprisingly well in spite of the impressive display. These are the best graphics in the series. The other good thing that the game does, and it is also the best in the series, is the stealth.
Don't be suspicious. 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 Don't be suspicious.
Ironically, I believe that Assassin's Creed Shadows surpassed Unity not only in the graphics department, but in the stealth one as well. Look, I'm sorry, but I still consider Unity to be a disappointment because of the technical issues at release and because that story is ass. But it deserves its props for the things it did right. The parkour is goated, I know, and stealth is also one of them. Okay, the next part is going to be even more hilarious than the automated trailing missions from before, bear with me. If you're not familiar with Assassin's Creed in general, this is going to be even funnier. You know how Unity changed the stealth game? It added a fucking crouch button. Yeah, we didn't have that in the franchise for 7 years. It is fucking wild to have a series based on stealthy assassins and they cannot fucking crouch. You know what's even better than that? Shadows did the same thing and changed the stealth game by adding a prone button. Yeah, we didn't have the ability to prone for 11 years after we finally learned how to crouch. I swear to God, you cannot make this shit up. Both times I was shocked that we lived in an Assassin's Creed world where we didn't have these options because they added so much to the stealth, and now I cannot imagine a future entry not having these. By being able to go prone, you can hide in short grass. There are grass lengths now, boy, innovation. Moreover, altitude is an element that you need to consider now in Assassin's Creed because enemies can look up now and you cannot just stand on a roof without being seen like in previous titles. You have to go prone and examine your surroundings. You can crawl your way out of the enemy's sight, use small openings in the floor as a hiding spot or as an entrance point to make your way towards your target. It sounds really lame to be honest, but going prone really uncovers a whole new layer when it comes to infiltrating castles or bandit camps. You also have to take into consideration light. Not only does the time of the day have a lot of importance when infiltrating an enemy outpost, as it is harder to get spotted at night and also some enemies might actually be asleep, but light in itself is now a key element of the stealth system. There are plenty of candles and other different light sources spread around, which you can extinguish to hide yourself in the shadow. There are plenty of added layers to the stealth system that create an engaging gameplay loop when combined. Add on top a fluid parkour system, a grappling hook for maneuverability, and shinobi tools, and now it really feels like the ninja you always wanted to play as in an Assassin's Creed game. The parkour is still snappy, however it is not as magnetic when it comes to previous RPG AC games. You cannot just automatically climb any surface, you need to map out your route. And when you need to ascend, well, then you will have to use your grappling hook, which is a great callback to Syndicate. However, it is not as based as that one. You know, I think that grappling hook alongside beans on toast and also the Industrial Revolution are the most iconic contribution to the society made by the UK. One important note that I need to add regarding the stealth in this game is to not turn on the instant assassinations, because it completely ruins the progression. Look, if you want to play a game where you can kill everything in one hit, go back and replay the older stuff. Shadows falls in the same category with the past ACRPGs, and you are not allowed to instantly kill imposing threats in order to preserve some sort of difficulty. As you level up, you can put more and more skills into the assassin skill tree and spec your character to be able to perform these instant assassinations. It is not as grindy as in the previous installments to obtain these skills, therefore this approach actually feels more rewarding because you worked for said abilities. It is nice to have the option to go back to form, but I suggest you don't do that if you actually want to take the game seriously. Infiltrating outposts, killing every enemy one by one, making your way to your target has never been this much fun and exciting in an Assassin's Creed game. The small changes that were made to the stealth approach in AC Shadows made it the highlight of the game for me. However, the real structural changes were saved for the combat.
Shut your fucking mouth! No! Shut the fuck up, you cunt!
When you get spotted as Naoe, or if you play as Yasuke, you will eventually have to engage with the combat system of the game, and as I've mentioned, the tutorial sets up this element as something satisfactory, for the most part. The combat has been reworked from the previous titles, being more reactionary this time. The emphasis of the combat actually falls on how the player is able to respond to everything going on around them. White enemy attacks can be parried and red enemy attacks need to be dodged. Long gone are the days where you will get swarmed by 20 dudes and they would all attack you one by one. In Shadows, you will get swarmed by entire castles and everyone is coming at you at the same time. So you might have two incoming attacks that are different colors and you have to be quick on your feet to react properly so you can get out unscathed. You need to learn how to crowd control and prioritize different types of enemies. There might be some cunts in the back shooting at you with a gun or a bow and you have to constantly dodge them while fighting a brute. Or you might need to constantly evade 10 guys so you can get to those ranged bastards. The timing of your parries and dodges is also crucial because it can leave the enemy vulnerable for a devastating counterattack. So you constantly flip back and forth from offense to defense in order to capitalize on every moment of opportunity and also stay alive, because the enemy in this game hits like a brick, and depending on your level you might be susceptible to getting one-shotted. The difficulty of this game is defined by its combat encounters. That being said, it was kind of easy on normal difficulty, so I would recommend that you play this on the hardest setting to get the most enjoyment out of it. That way you will truly have to use all your tools and skills in order to survive. That is if you play as Naoe, because for Yasuke the combat is just a power fantasy. With Yasuke, the perspective is flipped on its head and instead of feeling like a fish out of water, you get to experience the brutality of the combat as you mow your way through entire castles. This game has some nasty kills. With Naoe, the fun factor comes from your necessity to analyze your surroundings, be calculated and precise. With Yasuke, you just get to have fun barging your way into any palace and kill its entire population in a spectacular fashion. He is a tank and can take a lot more damage, and his arsenal of weapons and skills allows him to create a bloody playground out of every combat encounter. As I said, it is a power fantasy for a samurai because the combat itself is satisfactory and brutal enough to make you feel like a real threat. The only problem is that Shadows is a Ubisoft game, so you know what that means. This game is really bloated, so after fighting the same types of enemies time and time again, everything will start feeling repetitive. You will see the same executions over and over again and they will lose their charm. Even if the combat is good, you can't stretch it out this much without doing some serious damage to the player experience. It also doesn't help that the AI has a stroke from time to time and you get hilarious bugs like this. It's the quintessential Ubisoft experience. As you level up, you can invest into cool abilities to keep things fresh, but the structure remains unchanged. On the bright side, to mediate this staleness, each character gets the choice of mastering 3 different weapon types, and this aspect is really well put together because all of them feel distinctly different from one another. Some weapons deal tons of damage close range to single targets, and others allow you to crowd control a lot better. The player's ability to choose his preferred playstyle is respected here, as you can approach the game however you like. Unless you want to use ranged weapons as Naoe, then fuck you for having these sorts of expectations. Also, fuck you if you want to climb tall shit as Yasuke, or parkour as Yasuke, or just interact with the core mechanics of the game as Yasuke. Yeah, this is a real fucking problem, let's get into it.
It tastes like some big brolic black dude named fucking Raquise pulled a fucking bedsheet over the head of my head and just proceeded to skull fuck me!
The lead up to the release of Assassin's Creed Shadows has been absolutely chaotic. Bruh, this game was hit with controversy after controversy and people torched the shit out of it. I'm actually pleasantly surprised that this game is doing good now, because apparently all of that nonsensical hate didn't translate to the general player's perception. Who would have thought that most gamers are not chronically online and are not invested in a stupid hate campaign that targeted this game? Yeah, stupid. Let me address again the elephant in the room. Yasuke was a real historical figure, a black man that served Lord Nobunaga, and based on historical accounts, he may or may have not been an actual samurai. Probably not. That being said, Assassin's Creed is a famous franchise that removed the crossbow from AC1 to emphasize historical accuracy, and then proceeded to make the player fistfight the Pope in the second game. This series has never been known for historical accuracy. In AC3, you play as a Native American that single-handedly wins the Revolutionary War. In Unity, French people are portrayed as likable individuals. Everything is inspired by history. You are not going to quote Assassin's Creed on your history paper. So the only explanation for hating on Yasuke being a samurai in Shadows is being a bigot, or you didn't play these games in the first place to comment on them. This is even more apparent when people complain about playing as a female assassin, as if these never existed. I hate that grifters found their way into gaming, and now every time a game features a woman or a person of color as the protagonist, it gets categorized as woke DEI garbage. You don't even know what woke or DEI means, shut the fuck up. You preach that Ghost of Tsushima is better than Shadows, then you rant about how Ghost of Yote is woke. It's frustrating to have this type of discourse when there are bigger problems that get overlooked, such as the fact that the ability to play as 2 protagonists in Shadows is completely unbalanced and wasted. In theory, it sounds amazing to have one character focused on stealth and the other one focused on combat, because you basically get 2 games in one and you can alternate between them. In practice, this was done horribly when one character cannot interact with the main mechanics of the fucking game. When I say Yasuke is combat focused, what I want to say is that it is everything that Yasuke can do. You can barely climb over small fences as Yasuke. You cannot parkour, which is the main thing when it comes to Assassin's Creed. God forbid you roam around the open world, you encounter a synchronization point on top of a tower and you cannot climb it because you're playing as Yasuke. So you have to go into your menu, change character, go into a loading screen, then climb the tower. The immersion and the pacing get ruined, and the same thing applies vice versa. You sneak your way into a castle as Naoe, you see a point of interest and you cannot get to it because you cannot move a fucking shelf out of the way. So you have to sneak back out of the castle, change to Yasuke, and now you have to fight everyone because he cannot sneak. This is horrible game design. As soon as you discover that Yasuke can climb or parkour, you're incentivized to not want to play as him, because Naoe can do almost everything that Yasuke can do. So now you don't have 2 games into one, you have a fun way to play the game, or you can handicap yourself intentionally and play the not so fun way. Ubisoft, you market your whole game around Yasuke. You get the short end of the stick because you don't deserve the bigotry, and you still don't do him justice. Especially when he has the better story. Remember when I said that Assassin's Creed Shadows does two things very well, which were the stealth and the visual presentation, and also one thing very poorly? Well, that thing is the story. I have played almost every single game in the AC franchise, and for me, there are only two stories that stood out: Black Flag and Origins. Every other story ranges from weak to alright. And don't lie that the Ezio trilogy had a good story. It had great characters that carried a serviceable story. We remember those games because Ezio was the best protagonist in the series, not because the stories were that memorable. That being said, compared to Black Flag and Origins, Shadows is on the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to the story. This shit was ass. That's a funny phrase for you. I will obviously not spoil anything, but not just because I respect you, but because I don't remember anything that happened. Whilst I'm writing this script, it's been 2 days since I finished the game, and I completely forgot 90% of the main story already. One word that would perfectly describe the story is boring. Very boring. Those are 2 words I can use to describe the story. Very fucking boring if you want 3. You know why? Because the main story is mostly focused on Naoe and the weak revenge plot I mentioned earlier. But get this is not only a revenge story. Naoe is also on a quest to recover the box that was stolen from her. The main story revolves around the fucking box. I'm not even kidding. And we don't even know what's in the godforsaken box until the very end.
What's in the box? What's in the fucking box?
I don't care about avenging a person I'm not emotionally attached to, and I care even less about taking back a fucking box. This is a weak narrative, and it doesn't help the fact that it is mainly centered around Naoe, and Naoe is a boring fucking character. For real, she has to be one of the weakest protagonists in the entire franchise. Even Cassandra had more personality than her. Naoe is just uninteresting, and despite showing emotion from time to time, she seems dead inside. She doesn't have a personality. The only times I was interested in what she was doing was during her romance questlines or when she was interacting with Yasuke. I swear to God, she's a supporting character in her own story because she has to get carried by other more interesting characters all the time. On the other hand, Yasuke's story is intertwined with the main plot, but doesn't get that much emphasis until the very end. By the time you get invested into his story, it's fucking over, and that is because the pacing of the story is terrible. So you do the tutorial as Yasuke, then you completely forget about him as the first act of the game, which takes approximately 10 hours, is only centered around Naoe. After that, Yasuke gets back into the scene, and the game's pacing takes a nosedive because after playing for 10 hours as Naoe, getting a good understanding of how the gameplay mechanics work, you get thrown into the third tutorial of the game, the second one with Yasuke. Everything ramped out leading to a satisfying finale of Act 1 just to aggressively push down on the brakes immediately after. And Act 2 is so much worse. Assassin's Creed Shadows follows the same formula that Origins introduced of having the main targets hidden, and by doing missions, you discover more about their identity and their location until you finally track them down and kill them. This was an interesting concept when it was first introduced, then Odyssey went overboard with the cult, and now in Shadows this whole idea feels tedious and ruins the structure of the story. Each one of these masked guys that stole your fucking box, don't forget, have their own personal stories tied to multiple other characters, and after killing 15 of them or so, I forgot most of them. For real, so many characters get introduced and it's hard to keep up, but everything is superficial because you meet someone, they help you kill a main guy, then they don't show up for the rest of the game. So you meet a new guy that does the same thing, and you repeat this process 16 times.
The detail.
The pool of villains gets diluted this way because there are so many that the main guy doesn't stand out. Hell, the story doesn't even end when you kill the main bad guy because there are more main bad guys that get introduced 20 hours into the game. That is when Yasuke's story starts to pick up, and also you get reminded that you play Assassin's Creed because assassins and templar stuff starts showing up. But don't get your hopes up, because as soon as the story starts becoming interesting, you get hit with one of the most abrupt endings I have ever experienced in a video game. If you take your time, Act 1 will take you around 10 hours. Act 2 can easily double that time if you take your time. Act 3 of the game takes you a few hours at most. I was introduced to new interesting story beats that could snowball into an actual satisfying finale, and 2 hours later I got slapped by the fucking end credits. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that my jaw was on the floor. I could not believe it. But hey, we don't play Assassin's Creed for the story, right? Unless for when it's pretty great. No, we play Assassin's Creed to feel like a kid in a sandbox, free to go wherever we want and do whatever we desire. We play Assassin's Creed to lose ourselves in a beautiful and immersive world of past civilizations. So how is that experience in Assassin's Creed Shadows?
Welcome to the rice fields, motherfucker!
After losing my precious box in the introduction and getting thrown into the open world of Assassin's Creed Shadows, the first thing I encountered was a pretty chill minigame that surprisingly turned out to be a full-blown side quest. Not only that, but this side quest was actually a flashback from Naoe's past that explored her life before the invasion that led to her quest for revenge. I was pleasantly surprised that my exploration got rewarded with crucial information regarding Naoe that was tied to the main narrative. You always want to do this when creating side content because you give it a level of importance that sways the player to not rush the main story and spend more time with the game. It's good game design. That being said, after 4 of these so-called side quests that explore Naoe's backstory, I continued doing the minigames, but nothing would happen after. No quest would start. Then I figured out that doing these 4 minigames was actually the objective of Naoe's main personal quest. To say I was misled and disappointed would be an understatement. I knew Ubisoft and their infamous approach to the open world, and I still let my guard down after the initial impressive perception. Unfortunately, the open world design which Ubisoft has been famous for is here and stronger than ever. At this point, this is their calling card, the same way that CD Projekt Red is known for banger side quests, or Bethesda for doing less for their games than their mothers.
Are we stopping to visit your goon cave, Nerevar?
Speaking of CD Projekt Red, you know how the developers in Witcher 3 designed their world around the 40-second rule? If you explore the world in any direction, you should encounter something to grab your attention every 40 seconds. Well, Ubisoft was like, nah, that's too long, fam. How about 10 seconds? That will get them hooked. The exploration part of Assassin's Creed Shadows is as bloated as the past installments. The world is massive. Not as massive as Odyssey, thank Christ, but it is still big enough to fill it with a ton of copy and paste content. There are endless temples and forts and shrines, god-forsaken fucking shrines. Who designed this to force the player into staring at the screen waiting for these long ass animations to end? I have so much footage of shrines, kill me now. And you know what's the best part? You have to do them. You have to do the side content, but not because they're integrated into the main narrative, as I've already mentioned, but because by doing them, you earn knowledge points that allow you to learn new skills. So if you ignore the side content, you will be stuck with endless skill points that you cannot use because the skills are locked. I still remember how grindy Odyssey was because in that game, in order to progress the main story, you basically need to do most side quests to earn enough XP to not be underleveled. Now, Shadows is not as grindy because I actually ignored most side quests and prayed enough times to actually earn the skills Ubisoft wanted me to use. And you know why I ignored these side quests? because most of them are not even that. They're to-do lists. I would interact with several people and their quest was for me to kill 100 bandits, grab 10 flags, collect 69 tea sets. How did we get here that the side quests are nothing more than glorified bullet points? I'm not doing all of that. If you have OCD, this is going to be a blast for you because Ubisoft designed the main menu in a way that is very satisfying to check off things. They definitely have a team of psychologists in their development team that curate the user interface pretty enough to make you addicted to complete everything in the game. I felt for this trick before, but not this time. The best part of the side content are the castles because their layouts are different, so every stealth approach feels fresh when you try to navigate your way to the objective. But good luck finding this objective because the same motherfucker that designed the shrines probably designed the new dot system. You still have your eagle vision, but when you investigate your surroundings, different dots with different colors will pop on your screen, indicating that resources or important targets are in your vicinity. This is your main tool for exploration. On a grand scale, this helps the main narrative as your objective is always hidden and you get clues as to where you actually need to go, and you have to explore the area based on these clues in order to find your target. This makes exploration more engaging as you try to triangulate the correct spot, but on a smaller scale, you will run around every castle, losing your eyesight trying to pinpoint a small ass faded white dot that indicates the last samurai that needs to be killed. I miss the eagle, bro. You can also use scouts to pinpoint exactly where your objective is, if you want the experience to be more streamlined. These scouts are a resource provided by your hideout because Assassin's Creed has that now. You will come back here to upgrade your gear, hire new scouts, and train allies to assist you in combat. Those are sick, but also pretty overpowered. You can design the layout of your hideout however you like, and also use resources spread around the world to upgrade its various rooms to access more resources. And that's it with the hideout. It's a really basic mechanic that doesn't add much, to be honest. It's there, I guess, and its addition is appreciated, but nothing to raise my voice about. And that's how I can describe the entire game, to be honest.
We are free to follow our own path. There are those who will take that freedom from us. Too many of you gladly give it. But it is our ability to choose whatever you think is true that makes us human.
We are living in strange times when even us gamers have become so divided over the stupidest things, and it is now when we have to remember these words from our favorite Assassin's Creed protagonist. We have become too quick to judge a person based on their opinion. If you like something that has a general negative perception, you will get crucified, and the same thing can be said about disliking something universally adored. Long gone are the days of the console wars when we would just disagree on which system is the better product for the consumer. We are not even united as consumers anymore, trying to protect the quality of the games we consume. There are microtransactions in this single-player game which is inexcusable, but we completely overlook this aspect and we fight amongst ourselves about identity politics. We're missing the point of what should actually be criticized in video games: predatory consumer tactics, lazy game design, unfinished final products, not the race or the gender of the protagonists. Look, I didn't make this video to preach about Unity. I already told you I don't like it. I wanted to critique Assassin's Creed Shadows based on its merit and flaws, but due to the antagonistic discourse that surrounds this game, I had to come in with my take because I don't think this is an isolated case, but a perfect example of how the gaming community devolved. I may have sounded too critical during this review at times, but that's because Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft in general were a big part of my life at some point, and I want them to do better because I know what they're capable of. I actually don't hate this game, and as I've said, this is not even remotely close to being a bad game. It looks absolutely gorgeous and the attention to detail makes everything stand out. The stealth is the best in the series and the combat might be as well, as it is very satisfying, but it might get repetitive due to its simplistic nature. On the other hand, AC Shadows doesn't raise the bar of the series one bit because it has quite a few glaring flaws. The story was so boring that I literally almost fell asleep whilst I was playing late at night one time. The chemistry between Naoe and Yasuke is the best part, but the dual protagonist structure is broken to the core as there is no incentive to play as Yasuke due to how limited his gameplay is. And the map is as bloated as ever, filled to the brim with uninteresting side content put there to slow down the player's progression and force you to buy microtransactions. Assassin's Creed Shadows is basically a pineapple with a hard shell of bad game design, and only if you remove it and don't pay attention to it, you can enjoy the sweet elements of the game. There is as much to love here as it is to hate, so I get both camps. To be honest, you get exactly what you see with Assassin's Creed Shadows, so before trying out the game, look at some gameplay footage, and if that looks like something you might be into, you will probably enjoy the game. But please don't pay $70 for it. This is not worth $70. Wait for a sale or do what I did and subscribe to Ubisoft Plus for a month, have your way with the game and then cancel the subscription. I don't think I will be returning to Shadows anytime soon, so I'm glad I chose this approach. I would give AC Shadows a 6 out of 10 on a standard gaming review scale and a 2 out of 5 on a KIPH scale, which stands for you should play this if you don't have anything else to play. Wait, I remembered you can pet cats and dogs in this game, so it gets an automatic bonus point, so 7 out of 10. After playing Shadows, I'm really torn because now I want to go back and play Valhalla and Mirage to see how they stack up to Shadows. Because not counting Origins, this might be the best Assassin's Creed in the modern anthology series. But I also want to take another break from Assassin's Creed because these games require a lot of investment, and unlike Twitter grifters, I actually play the games I talk about, and time is a precious resource. I hope that Ubisoft takes a break from Assassin's Creed as well, goes back to the drawing board again and cooks something up that can take the series to the next level, like they did with Origins, because it might be time considering how stale the modern RPG formula has gotten. But I don't think that will happen, taking into account how Ubisoft needs a consistent intake of good sales in order to stay afloat. If you've stayed with me for the entire duration of this video, I cannot express how much that means to me. I hope you get to watch this and make up your own mind regarding on whether you should play this game or not. If you played Assassin's Creed Shadows, please let me know about your experience in the comments below. And if you haven't, please let me know how was your day. I hope it was great. Now please make mine great by liking and subscribing. That's what I call emotional manipulation. Just kidding. As always, your presence has been priceless, and I hope I get to see you again in the next one. Take care.